Welcome to our podcast session. Today, we're delving into the fiery saga of John Knox, a man whose explosive ideas rewired not just worship, but the very fabric of Scottish identity.
Oh, absolutely. It's fascinating how one individual's journey can shake an entire nation, right?
Exactly. It's like, you know, he started off as a Catholic notary priest, and then, after the martyrdom of his mentor George Wishart, he is transformed into a
Right.
revolutionary force.
That transformation is wild. He went from his early life in East Lothian straight into political and religious turmoil. How crazy is that?
Oh, very crazy. And the way his experiences shaped him. Imagine being a galley slave for 2 years under the French after preaching at a besieged saint. Andrews. It really forged a man who would never shy away from shocking declarations.
Those early hardships set the stage, didn't they? And then there's his time in England under Edward VI, where he seriously embraced the idea of sola scriptura.
Yes, precisely. It's like, he had these experiences that made him reject the church for what he perceived as idolatry and worship.
Yeah.
He began arguing that only Scripture should judge, and that's when his radical blueprint started taking shape.
And what a blueprint it was. His time in Geneva was especially influential, right? Where he soaked up John Calvin's intense reform ideas, which then, in turn, fed into his later work in Scotland.
Absolutely, Geneva was like his, experimental lab for ideas. There he learned about God's sovereignty, predestination, and the necessity for a worship that was strictly based on the Bible, the regulative principle. It really set him
Exactly.
apart from the old ways.
I mean, putting it in perspective, he was kind of the original disruptor, wasn't he? Ditching images and incense in favor of a very austere form of worship.
Right. And he didn't stop at the pulpit. Knox was also quite the writer. His work, The First Blast of the Trumpet against the Monstrous Regiment of Women, was revolutionary, arguing that female rule went against divine law.
Yeah.
And that really sent shock waves across Europe.
It's interesting how that text, while aimed at Mary Tudor, ended up influencing so many across different regions, including Elizabeth I, who never really forgave him.
Exactly. It's like his words were dynamite, blasting through the established order. His writings weren't just theological musings, they had political teeth. The idea that if monarchs embraced idolatry, then even nobles and councils had not just the right but the duty to resist was as fiery as it gets.
Yes, that political theology, that notion of resistance, is a major takeaway here. On one hand, it offers a blueprint for a people governed by divine law, but on the other, critics claim it skirts dangerously close to sedition.
Right. And that's where things get, kinda controversial. Knox's insistence that rulers, even queens, needed to be held accountable to Scripture sparked major confrontations. His interviews with Mary, Queen of Scots,
exactly.
are legendary. It's like he was challenging the very notion of divine right.
And these exchanges, especially his confrontations with Mary, are the stuff of legend. I mean, can you imagine a man telling a queen that her very rule is sinful? That's, extraordinarily bold.
Yeah, some say it was the purest form of prophetic revelation, mixing Old Testament fervor with a new Reformed discipline. It's like he fused rigid theology with a kind of medieval revolutionary spirit.
I'll say that again. Revolutionary, but also quite uncompromising. And then there's the whole Iconoclasm movement he ignited. When he returned to Scotland in 1559, his sermons practically set off a wave of altar smashing and image destroying across the land.
Absolutely. The very same sermons that led to Scotland's Parliament by 1560 repudiating papal authority and quickly drafting the Scots Confession. Imagine crafting such a fundamental document in, get this, just
Yeah,
a
no
week.
kidding.
It really speaks to the urgency of his vision.
Right. And that document wasn't a mere formality. It defined the church in terms of preaching, sacraments, and, discipline. Discipline wasn't bundled off into a footnote. It was the backbone of his approach.
Exactly. Knox viewed discipline as, the very spine of the church. like nerves in a body. Without discipline, the entire structure, both spiritually and socially, would collapse.
And speaking of social transformation, his first book of discipline was far more than religious doctrine. It was a national blueprint. Schools in every parish, care for the poor, training for ministers, the whole package was designed to, in a way, remake society.
It's like he envisioned a complete overhaul of societal norms, an actual tangible reordering of national culture based on scripture and moral
Yeah.
discipline, turning Scotland into a kind of biblically governed community.
But here's something that always makes me wonder. Do you think his heavy-handed methods, like that strict resistance to any form of royal idolatry, might have actually caused more division than unity?
That's a good point, sure. His, rhetoric was incendiary. Some argue it was necessary to shatter centuries of established norms, but others say it bordered on fanaticism. It's like he was both a builder of institutions and a burner of traditions.
Yeah, and his personal life wasn't exactly above reproach either. Marrying a 17-year-old when he was in his 50s would certainly be considered scandalous today.
Exactly. His legacy is, full of paradoxes. On one side, he crafted mechanisms for church discipline and nation building, but on the other, those very mechanisms provided grounds for accusations of surveillance and, well, authoritarian control.
Absolutely.
It's a delicate balance between reform and repression.
And then you have, posthumously, the fact that his framework lived on. Presbyterianism, for instance, not only transformed Scotland, but influenced regions like Ulster and even extended into the American colonies.
Yes, indeed. Even after his death in 1572, his ideas evolved through, the second book of discipline and continued to echo throughout history. Really, his resistance to tyranny paved the way for later constitutional ideas, where rulers are under law and even corporate entities can challenge overreach.
That's, a fascinating ripple effect. It's like his pulpit became the birthplace of modern checks on power, no matter how controversial his style was.
And his whole saga forces us to ask deep questions. Are nations best reformed by a divine mandate, or should faith be kept solely in the personal realm, away from the halls of power?
Right, exactly.
It's a debate that still resonates today.
And, that's where modern critics sometimes challenge his legacy. They argue that his approach, with its heavy doses of iconoclasm and, moral surveillance, might have sown division as much as it inspired reform.
True, though, to be fair, his admirers say that his methods, however extreme, were what was needed to catalyze a reawakening, a complete reordering of society.
I definitely see that. It's a classic case of revolutionary necessity versus, well, potential for tyranny. You know, one might say it's a challenge to our modern ideas of governance and freedom.
Right. It's like, if you look at today's debates about the role of religion in public life, Knox's ideas echo in surprising ways. His insistence that not even monarchs are above divine law is a precursor to the modern concept of accountability.
Exactly. And it doesn't stop at theology. The concepts he set in motion, like the idea of a society that holds even its leaders accountable, can be seen as the early seeds of modern constitutionalism.
Absolutely. His political theology, as wild as it was, did lay the groundwork for the notion that power is not unchecked, that there's always a higher law.
I have to say, though, I sometimes wonder if his uncompromising nature would fare in today's diverse, pluralist societies.
That's a fair critique. His methods might be viewed today as overly draconian, pitting uncompromising purity against a more inclusive approach to faith and governance.
That's true. But then again, his relentless approach undeniably sparked critical reforms. He, forced a societal conversation about the role of religious authority in everyday life, a debate that is still alive.
Exactly. Love him or loathe him, Knox's legacy is monumental. From iconoclasm to institutional reforms, he reshaped Scottish society in ways that, continue to influence our understanding of state, church, and ultimately the individual.
Right, absolutely. And that, in a nutshell, is our deep dive into the life, the turmoil, and the lasting impact of John Knox. It sure gives us plenty to ponder about the intersections of zeal, reform, and power.
Indeed. Thanks for this lively discussion. Always a thrill to, dissect historical revolutions and see how they shape our world today.
Yes, absolutely. Until next time, keep questioning and exploring, because history, much like faith, never leaves us without something to debate.